called me and said, I met this woman who's coming to your house who you're going to marry.
What made George Clooney, one of Hollywood's most eligible bachelors, finally believe in love?
So the minute we met, we sort of felt like we were going to be together.
Hi, I'm Janet. Let's start. George before Amal. It wasn't easy for these two to find each other, and both of them had a long history of romances behind them, especially George. Let's take a quick look back at what he was like before he met the love of his life. Being one of Hollywood's most lovable heartthrobs, Clooney dated a large number of women, and most of them were famous actresses or TV personalities. George's first long-term relationship was with actress Kelly Preston. Yeah, the same Kelly Preston who later married John Travolta. While they were still dating, he once presented her with a Vietnamese pot-bellied pig named Max. And after they separated, he kept the animal until it died 18 years later.
You know, pigs are really smart.
Yeah.
And he was funny, and he made me laugh.
As George joked, Max was the longest relationship he had ever had. And in fact, the pig once saved the actor's life. Max woke him up minutes before an earthquake started, and both of them managed to escape the house safely in time. So thank you, Max, for saving our George, and rest in peace. While he still had his pet pig, Clooney got married to actress Talia Balsam. As George later stated, I definitely wasn't someone who should have been married at that point. So yeah, it was not the right time for him to settle down, and they got a divorce 4 years later. George became the quintessential bachelor with no marriage aspirations, and he was proud of it. In fact, George was so sure that he'd never get married that he even made a bet with Michelle Pfeiffer for $100,000. I wonder what she did with the money he lost to her. Anyway, a series of relationships with famous beauties followed George's first marriage. Renee Zellweger, Krista Allen, Stacy Keibler. Those are only a few names of the women Clooney dated before he met the woman who managed to steal his heart. The fairy tale begins. On a summer day in July 2013, human rights lawyer Amal Alamuddin was on her way to Cannes, passing through Italy's Lake Como area. She had a friend with her who also happened to be George's friend. The actor invited him over to his home. The unnamed friend didn't want to leave Amal alone, so he took her with him. That's how George met the woman of his dreams. I thought she was beautiful. I thought she was funny and obviously smart, the actor said about their first encounter. She probably thought I was old. Yeah, right. Like, he's old is the first thing you'd think when you meet a man like George Clooney. Come on, George, you know your worth. But what made this chance encounter even more fateful was the fact that Clooney's parents were visiting him on the exact same evening. So it means that Amal didn't only get to meet her future husband, but also his parents. And they loved her. We stayed up all night talking, and then I got her email address because she was going to send me some pictures of my parents, George revealed. They then began communicating right afterward. And yet, George was still not sure if Amal wanted to date him. I chased her for many months, calling and writing, those kind of things, he shared. I'm sure that Amal was flattered by the attention she was getting from one of the most handsome actors in Hollywood. But he was drawn to her for many reasons. She's an amazing human being, and she's caring, Clooney said. And she also happens to be one of the smartest people I've ever met. For a while, George and Amal remained just friends, talking to each other a lot, telling how their day was, sharing news, and so on. But soon enough, it started becoming evident that they were more than friends. So George asked Amal out for their first date. He invited her to visit him at Abbey Road Studios in London. He was supervising the recording of the score for his new movie, The Monuments Men. When his work was done, they went for dinner. And as they were leaving the restaurant, dozens of paparazzi were there. According to George, Amal handled them like a champ, and things progressed pretty quickly from there. They spent Christmas together, traveled together, made their first public appearance at the premiere of The Monuments Men. They had a lot in common. Both of them have always been ready to stand up for the most vulnerable, with George's humanitarian work in war-torn countries, and Amal being a human rights lawyer and activist. In a matter of months, George knew that she was the one, and he wanted to spend the rest of his life with her. So the next step naturally was popping the question. George's proposal to Amal was entirely out of the blue. They never spoke about getting married, and she didn't expect him to propose to her anytime soon. In fact, shortly before he popped the question, She talked to her parents, and they asked her about George's intentions. Amal was like, "Relax, we've been going out only for 6 months." Little did she know, George was planning his proposal to her at that exact same moment. Interestingly, he didn't have any doubts about their compatibility. He knew that they'd be happy together. "My only doubt was if she thought maybe it was too soon," the actor explained. So on the evening that he planned to propose, he made dinner, turned on the music to a playlist he compiled especially for the occasion, and hid the ring behind her. At some point, George blew out the candles and asked Amal to take a lighter out of the box behind her to light them.
She reaches around, she pulls out the box, and I've got just the ring sitting in there. And she pulls it out and she looks at it and she's like, "It's a ring."
It didn't even occur to her that the ring was there because George was proposing. So, the next thing he did was get down on his knee and say he couldn't imagine his life without her. But she still didn't get it for quite some time. Since there was a playlist of music going on in the background, they knew exactly how long the whole proposal took. And it was 25 minutes. During all this time, Amal just kept staring at the ring and repeating, "Oh my God," while George was still on his knee.
I hope the answer is yes, but I need an answer because, I'm 52 and I could throw out my hip pretty soon.
And after that, she finally said yes. Did you know that George Clooney was such a romantic? Only less than a year after their first date, the couple tied the knot in a private but grand ceremony in Venice, Italy. The newlyweds had about 100 guests at their wedding. Among them were such famous personalities as Emily Blunt, John Krasinski, Cindy Crawford, Bono, and of course, George's long-term friend, Matt Damon. Initially, George and Amal didn't want to tell the press about their upcoming wedding. But, as it often happens, everyone somehow found out all about it. And when the newlyweds were getting onto their boat, paparazzi followed them. They tried to hide at first, but then George realized that they had nothing to be ashamed of, and they didn't have to hide. So they got up and waved. Seeing their big smiles, no one could doubt that the newlyweds were on cloud number 9. Who would have thought that such a notorious bachelor like George Clooney would settle down at 53 years old? But meeting the love of his life and getting married wasn't the only thing that took the actor by surprise. Becoming a father. Just like they didn't plan on getting married only a year after meeting each other, George and Amal didn't even talk about having kids. "It had never been a part of my DNA," George once explained, adding that both of them just assumed that the other one didn't want to have children. But sometime after they got married, they started discussing it, and they realized that they wanted to share their love they had with someone else because leaving it all to themselves seemed selfish. So 2 years after getting married, they announced that Amal was pregnant. But an even bigger surprise for the famous couple came when the doctor said they were expecting twins.
He goes, "Yeah, there's the baby." And he goes, "And there's the other one." And I was like, "The other one? What are you talking about?"
In June 2017, Amal gave birth to Ella and Alexander. Soon after becoming parents, George and Amal promised each other they'd both be as careful and responsible as possible. Given how often both of them went to war-torn countries on their missions, it really was an important pact. "I will not go to South Sudan anymore, and in the Congo," Clooney said. "Amal will no longer go to Iraq, and she will avoid places where she knows she's not welcome." That's definitely a wise decision. And these days, George can't stop gushing over what a great mother Amal is and how amazing their twins are. And he once revealed, even at their young age, they're already showing personality. His little boy Alexander is a real thug, while Ella already takes after her mother, always wanting to look elegant.
Do you know what brings joy is little children?
Well, it looks like fatherhood worked out pretty well for George, even though it was never his plan. "I really didn't think at 56 I would be the parent of twins. Don't make plans. You always have to just enjoy the ride," the actor said. Yeah, you never know. How they changed each other. As George once said, "Finding the love he and Amal have for each other will make you a completely different person. Suddenly, the other person's life becomes more important than your own," the actor explained. "I'm sorry I was 50-something when it happened, but only because I could have spent even more time with her." And Amal is on the same page as her husband because she can't imagine her life without him. "He is the person who has my complete admiration and also the person whose smile makes me melt every time," she said. Isn't she just the luckiest woman in the world?
My love, What I have found with you is the great love that I always hoped existed. And seeing you with our children, Ella and Alexander, is the greatest joy in my life.
The way these two lovebirds look at each other and talk to each other should make us all believe that real love exists.
Amal, whatever alchemy it is that brought us together, I couldn't be more proud to be your husband.
Don't they look lovely together? Share in the comments below what you think about this beautiful couple. Don't forget to subscribe, and thanks for watching.